Good evening, everyone. This is the curriculum workshop and special meeting of the Downers Grove Grade School District 58 Board of Education here on Monday, October 28, 2024 at 7 p.m. here at Henry Cover School. This meeting is being live streamed for the public on the District 58's YouTube channel. Melissa, will you please call roll?
Member Joshi.
Here.
Member Ellis is not yet here. Member Hannis. Here. Member Harris.
Here.
Member Olczyk.
Here.
Member Weiner. Here. Member Hughes.
Here. Tonight, members of the audience will have an opportunity to provide public comment later on in the agenda. The board asks anyone wishing to comment to please fill out a card and indicate the topic to be addressed. These can be placed in the basket on the table over by the door over there. I've allotted 30 minutes tonight for public comment. All right, we're going to go ahead and start off the evening with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hold this fire up so the flag goes back.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, tonight is just our curriculum workshop, so we're going to go ahead and kick this off. Liz Eric, are you?
Yeah, I'll start off with the introduction, and then Liz will get up here with the team. So first and foremost, I want to welcome everyone to this year's annual curriculum workshop that we always do the last Monday in October. I'd especially like to thank our teachers who are here tonight who will be presenting. So thank you for coming. We appreciate the extra hours. As we look at tonight's workshop, here are the discussion topics for this evening. A big piece of this will be our annual review of the strategic plan and a look ahead at what we plan to accomplish this year. Ms. Earhart will take us through year-end ECRA data for 23-24. She'll also give us an overview of the building SIP plans, information regarding the upcoming release of the Illinois School Report Cards and some of the designations. So those are still embargoed, but we will come back in the November meeting and go over all of that in full detail in 2 weeks. We'll get an update from Jessica Stewart and our teachers on the district's special programs for student services, and we'll rotate through featuring those programs. We'll be all the way at the end of the hallway for that. And then, of course, as always at the curriculum workshop, we're going to update on district committees. So to kick off our curriculum workshop, we want to update you on the strategic plan. Just as a reminder, this is a 5-year plan, and we are officially in year 2 of that plan. So a brief summary of year 2. Last spring, we summarized the progress made in the 5 key areas at the June board meeting. This fall, we've outlined the priorities that we're going to attempt to tackle in 24-25. On October 21st, we met with the DLT. The district leadership team reviews our progress on all the initiatives that are going on in the strategic plan. And then we also shared with them the draft presentation for this evening, and they were able to give us feedback. Tonight, we'll share that final presentation. We'll collect feedback from the Board of Education. That will obviously help finalize our priorities and continue the work. Key points around the strategic plan. This is our North Star in the school district. I always share with community groups that school districts can do millions of things. And many people in the community might want you to focus on one thing and the district might be focusing on another. But the nice thing about the strategic plan is this is a plan written by the community and approved by the Board of Education. So we really do use this as our North Star. And all those things that a school district can do, strategic plans really help focus the priority and what we want to accomplish in given years. Again, I shared that this is a collaborative plan. You remember back to O'Neill in May of 23, we got together with the board, the admin, staff, students even helped in our community, and we wrote this plan. Focusing on priorities set by the community each year. Typically we do 2 to 3. All priorities will now be addressed, and what I mean by that is last year, certain goal areas might have had 2 areas of focus. Now we're able to roll in all those areas of focus, so they'll all be addressed. Work will continue on all priorities over the 5-year period. So some of those things that we started could have been one and done, meaning that we accomplished them in a year, but most are written that we'll work on those throughout the 5-year process. So just because we're now addressing new priorities doesn't mean that we've completed the work on the previous priorities. And again, those development teams led by the assistant superintendents, they help to create what the priorities are going to be for each year. DLT continues to monitor progress, And the final update on everything we're going to share with you tonight will take place at the June 9th board meeting. And that's where we'll come back to the board and we'll say this is how we did it for year 2. Again, I want to thank the board, the DLT, the assistant superintendents, the staff, students, and community members for all their work in this plan. So with that, each assistant superintendent will take you through the goal area or areas that they are in charge of, and they'll walk you through what we're doing.
Good evening, board.
There we go. Good evening, board. How are you this evening? So Jessica and I are going to be going over strategic plan goal 1, which is focusing on learning. As you see on the slide here, these are our 5 objectives that were built out during our strategic plan work. Last year, we built out action items for the first 3 objectives, did some of that initial work on those 3 objectives, and then this past summer and into the fall, we built out action steps for objectives 1.4 and 1.5. So we're going to give you a little bit of information regarding each of these objectives. So when we take a look at objective 1.1, that's really focusing on setting high expectations for all learners. So in strategic plan of goal 1, objective 1.1, we're going to continue building our administrative and staff capacity this school year in the use of our ECHR and Forefront data platforms. That's really going to give us the ability to utilize our data for instructional decision making in our classrooms, and we're going to be supporting our staff in continuing to understand the uses of those platforms and how to best support their students. Additionally, we are exploring the structure of professional learning communities. We currently have a really robust Tier 1 and Tier 2, 3 process and protocol. We'd really like to put some additional parameters in place so that our processes are similar across all of our buildings. We want to ensure that we're embedding those in our current practices, recognizing that we're already doing a lot of the work within a PLC model and just putting some more formalities on that. This will include professional development for our administrators and our staff. So we're going to continue rolling out that progress throughout the course of this school year.
Additionally, for objective 1.2, our staff at the end of last year, our mental health support staff, participated in a training that we offered for free to assess and manage suicide risk in schools. And so we did that training at the very end of last year. We revisited it to start this school year. We're going to be applying those principles in instances where there is a concern over threat to self. We are also exploring the use of some additional screening tools in those moments to help us make good decisions for students. Additionally, we are going to be participating in training for a new tool that is rolling out for the state of Illinois. It's called Beacon. And it is a platform that they've indicated will allow school districts to help families access resources. That training is happening later in the day on Halloween, so we're looking forward to learning more and really finding how we can embed that within our practice to support our families. And then finally, ISB rolled out this school year a mental health screening readiness survey, which they asked all districts to complete. Our district has completed that survey, and we are waiting to find out exactly what the state board is going to be recommending related to that. So that's really the work of 1.2 this school year. In terms of some of the other objectives that we really have spent some time building out at the start of this school year, we'll be looking at that transparent instructional decision making, particularly Liz's office really supporting staff and understanding the ECHR platform and making sure that teachers are feeling comfortable embedding that data into making instructional decisions. For 1.4, that is really that intentional use of technology, ensuring that students are understanding the principles of digital literacy and digital citizenship. And for that objective this school year, we'll be collecting data from teachers just in terms of how they're currently using technology in their classrooms. And then finally, for objective 1.5, It's one that centers on evaluating and improving curricular offerings, and we found this particular objective, it has shown up in a couple different working groups, so it'll be paired with work for Building for Success later this year. But we'll be working in collaboration with them really to explore offerings for students, particularly at the middle school level, to really extend learning in those exploratory classes.
Good evening. So for goal 2, last year we started our work on objectives 2.1 and 2.2, and so we will continue working in those areas this year, and then we hope to build out our action steps for 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5. We're going to get you the overview of where we're at with those goals. For what we're focusing on for this upcoming school year, objective 2.1, we're going to focus on really our communication tool, the platform that we're using right now. We use a product called School Messenger. And as we had some of these conversations about how we're engaging with the community, we really felt that School Messenger may not meet all of our needs, at least in its current implementation. So we gathered some feedback from the Communications and Connection Council, and we'll talk to some end users, and we'll talk to the community, try to get some feedback, and look at existing feedback we have already gathered that may align with us, and really see if we need to transition to a better, more effective, more modern tool that will meet some of our goals that align with the strategic plan. We're going to continue to work on translation. It's a big challenge. We've got some great work in place, so we're going to continue to look at the tools and see how we're using them consistently across the district and how effective they are. And again, that tool may help us with that. And really, we're looking at kind of updating our communications protocols as a district to make sure we have a little more of a one-stop shop or a guide that we can use in a wide variety of circumstances and instances. So we're going to continue to work on that. Last year, you may recall we talked about a little bit. There's a book called On the Same Team, and there's a rubric in that text, and we were able to take that rubric to kind of evaluate where we were at. We put that rubric in front of the Superintendent's Advisory Council, put that rubric in front of the Communications and Connections Council, and in front of our administrative team. It's a great way to get some feedback from a modern text that has some really forward-thinking thoughts on how you should engage with your community. So we're able to get some good feedback on kind of where we stand, and that will drive our goals and some of our action steps for this upcoming school year. And our first step will be to bring some professional learning topics to our administrative team on how they're engaging with the community and how they're working with the community. So that's going to be a step we're excited about taking this year. For objective 2.2, one of the action steps revolves around sports for new students and our newcomers to the district. And so again, some great work is already happening here. Sandy Cristobal has done some great work from that perspective. A couple of principals have some great programs in place already. So really want to look at how can we take this up to the district level and have some consistent support in place in all 13 of our schools for new students and new families to our district. So that's work. Again, great things are already happening across the district, but how can we broaden the scope and get some consistent application across the district. And then another objective that we've kind of started working on a little bit is access to community events. And so whether it be open house, curriculum night, parent-teacher conferences, or other PTA events, we want to, one, assess who are we missing? Who is it that is not making it to those events? As an example, something we talked about would be on we don't always necessarily take attendance at events like open house, but usually teachers might have a sense that it can be formalized a little bit. We have, an activity that either parents take home or families take home or something that they leave behind, and that would help us get a sense to kind of take attendance and get a sense of who's not coming. Once we identify the families that aren't engaging in these various events, then what are some proactive steps we can take to figure out why they're not able to engage, and what are some things we can do to support and bring more families into the building? Again, some of those long-standing events we have, and some other events that may vary from school to school, but really the goal is how can we help get as many families engaged into our schools as possible, as we know how valuable that is. And then for 2.3 to 2.5, we're going to work with the Communications and Connections Council to develop the action steps for those areas.
Sorry, goal 3.1, working and going through the referendum resources, and we are continually working through those and moving on to our capital campaign as we finish the first season and moving on and bidding through the second season coming up for the long summer that we have in 2025. Goal 3.2, continuing to plan and make sure resources are available for district initiatives. As we are working through with our budgeted planning process, certainly as we have come to an end of federal funds through the COVID and ESSER funds, as those have ended this year, and moving forward and with those projections and updates, working through our 5-year planning structure, which is going to hit into the next several objectives, steps, is very important to us. The district has done a 5-year planning process every year. It becomes even more important, and as we continue to work through some of our estimates and the resources become more conservative, given some of the changes in economics that all districts have been facing as we're going through that piece. And so that is an important aspect as we're working through 3.2, as well as maintaining balanced budgets and complying with the board policy pieces and making sure that we're implementing that piece. 3.3 is continuing with the budget balancing piece and capital policy. That's something that the Financial Advisory Committee is working through and evaluating now as the conversations as to establishing a policy structure so that we are working and adding and having a system where we are continually putting resources aside and planning for updates going through the next several years. And we have a 5-year, as I said, a 5-year planning piece, but capital probably sometimes takes a few more years than that, so maybe a 6-year window, something like that. So as we work through that structure as to how much we put aside each year, how much is available outside of those other resources, with some recent law changes and so forth. So we're working on those pieces. 3.4, exploring possible sources and achieving savings. That is an item that we are obviously working through, and how we work to bid processes out. The district does a lot of combined bidding with area districts, District 99 and Woodridge. I just got an update today for transportation, and we're working through that bid process, but also exploring how we can do some other things. That also works in with food service and the National School Lunch Program, given that our structure has changed on the elementary lunch piece, and looking to utilize some federal funds for reimbursement for what is a growing number of meals that we're providing for students on a daily basis. And 3.5 is the preservation and continual long-term look, which goes to the capital policy piece and evaluating, looking through, moving forward, so that we're as efficient and effective, so that we aren't having to look for a large referendum years down the road again, like we've done this last time around. Okay. Moving through those pieces. As we get the National School Lunch piece, we'll go for it.
So strategic plan goal 4 is really built on building for success, which is implementing our new pre-K 5 and 6-8 models. So as we look at the objectives for goal 4, we really placed a ton of focus on objective 4.1 last school year, building out a middle school steering committee, and then building out subcommittees to complete the work written out in that goal. And then additionally, we had objective 4.2, which is primarily focused on examining building utilization at the elementary level. Additionally, in September, we wrote out action plans for objectives 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5. So as we take a look at the work that is moving ahead for objective 4.1, our working groups are currently continuing to stay on track with their goals. We're looking specifically at finalizing our middle school schedule model, which we're really excited about because that will launch a ton of additional work as we start to build out staffing plans, as we start to build out curricular offerings, the way we're supporting students in special programs and with additional resources and structures and intervention. And so all of that hinges on finalizing that potential middle school schedule. So we're hoping for that to be done at the beginning of winter. As we start to move into more of the staffing conversations, we then additionally are looking at transition planning. So that work will actually take place utilizing staff from our 5th grade classrooms, our 6th grade classrooms, and also middle school teachers as well. We're really wanting to ensure that there's a smooth transition from elementary school to middle school. We are bringing a large number of students over to our middle schools in that school year when we make the transition to a 6-8 model. And so we will be bringing both our 5th and 6th graders over at the same time. And so really, what does that transition planning look like? It's everything from events that they do during the school year that are specific to 6th grade and ensuring our 5th graders have that opportunity, but also how are we building that transition over to the middle school in terms of working with administration and making sure that the administrators from the middle school are visible in our elementary schools and our students see familiar faces. Actually working with what will then be our 7th graders and what their 8th grade school year will look like as the leaders of the building with 2 full grade levels of new students transitioning over. How can they be leaders in their school community and really support that work of moving 2 grade levels of students over? From there, we look at objective 4.2, and right now we have worked with a small subcommittee of principals, or a working group of principals, to really look at building utilization at the elementary schools. In some cases, when we make that transition of 6th graders over to the middle school, several of the schools will just feel that pressure release. If they have limited number of classroom availability right now, moving 6th graders over will free up some space for them. Other schools will have additional new spaces that they can work with. So how are we ensuring that there's equity in the use of those building spaces across our schools? And ensuring that we're prioritizing what that looks like. Additionally, we're going through a demographic study, and so we'll complete a formal review of that information to identify enrollment trends to further inform that work of that working group, and then moving forward for the Building for Success committee.
And then to wrap up goal 4, our committee spent time at the start of the school year really building out action steps for the remaining objectives. And for 4.3, we will be establishing a working group to review the current extracurricular offerings across the district in order to have that forward focus of what do we want to be offering in the future for our students. And then for objectives 4.4 and 4.5, we will, as I mentioned previously with goal 1.5, we'll begin to examine and develop that exploratory structure and really make sure that what we're offering to our middle school students is engaging and relevant and really extends their learning.
The objectives in Goal 5 really look at the experiences of students, staff, and families across the district, and many of the objectives do looking at things across the district in a variety of ways. So some of the work within the district equity leadership team, and some of the other work lies in other areas of the district. And so as we look at the focus for this school year, we're going to continually be reviewing our staffing allocation models across the district to make sure that students, regardless of what building they are attending, have an equitable access to experience. And so that's going to be everything from how we determine class size to how we determine support structures for students across the district. And we know that in a neighborhood school model, that's not going to make it same at every point in time, but it's going to mean that the way we approach the decision making is equitable across the board, and that work is ongoing. The district equity leadership team has been focusing on both extra and co-curricular offerings, and so this is a place where we're going to start to see some goal overlap between 4 and 5, I think, over the next year or so. And we've done some surveying about what is out there, what's been going on, what has been happening, looking sort of at demographic access to our our gifted programming, our accelerated math programming, and what that data looks like over time, as well as access to and experiences in our extracurricular activities, not just what the district is offering, but what PTAs are offering in different buildings, and what experiences exist for students sort of even outside of the exact purview of the school. So we're going to continue those conversations to make sure that there are equitable experiences for students across the district. We're looking into recruitment and retention practices for staff in an effort to make sure that our staff is continually growing and representative of the community that we serve, to make sure that our students can see themselves more and more in the staff they are interacting with as best that we are able as we go through our recruitment and retention efforts. That's a situation that many districts around us are grappling with and trying to ensure that we retain and attract the highest quality staff, but also recognize that the demographics of our district have changed over the past 10, 20, 30 years, and the demographics of our staff haven't necessarily changed in the same way. And so it's something we want to be cognizant of as we're moving forward. And the last objective that's up here is something that we do well, but we want to continuously try to do better, and that is really showing that we value our stakeholders and our staff members in particular. And so looking for ways to continue to celebrate and honor and demonstrate the really powerful things that are happening in our district on a daily basis across all of our staff groups, and making sure that we are finding ways not only to tell the story of the district, but to celebrate and truly demonstrate how proud we are of those things that are happening. You know, when we talk about the community relations department and the personnel department, realistically, we're talking about 5 humans, and so it's a pretty significant undertaking for a district of 700 plus employees. But it's something we want to continue to look for some of those local exemplars and find a couple of unique and new ways we can continue to build on some of those things that we already do to make sure that the people who are coming to work in District 58 every day want to continue to come to work in District 58 every day, because that really is part of maximizing the potential of who we have coming into our doors each day.
So in terms of the next steps of the strategic plan, of course, we'll get to the questions to the board, any feedback that you want to share. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll incorporate that feedback into this presentation and the final plan. Bullet point 3 says, finalize the written plan report for year 2. This is a little different than year 1. If you remember back to year 1, we had a draft of the big report that you will see on the website. And so at the November meeting last year, we asked the board to approve that entire plan. What we'll be asking the board to approve in 2 weeks is what we discussed tonight in terms of where we're going for year 2. So the approval will be a much shorter approval. It will be a memo followed with a revamped presentation, depending on what feedback we get from the board tonight, and then perhaps over the next couple of weeks with individual conversations. Updates, again, will be provided throughout the year to the DLT to make sure that we're on track with what we shared this evening, and then again, that end of year review on June 9th. So at this point, we can take any questions about any of the goal areas, and each assistant superintendent can help answer those questions.
Any questions from the board at this time? Comments?
Just a question on the DELT, the District Equity Leadership Team. Who's actually on that team?
So that is, sorry, let me make sure I got this microphone turned on. That currently is it's a staff group. There are administrators, teachers, there's a guidance counselor. So it's been a group that was formed actually as we were doing the equity audit a few years ago, and has existed since then. The group meets 3 to 4 times a year. So right now, it is a staff-only group that meets 3 to 4 times a year and has reviewed this kind of work over the past several years.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head when the next meeting is scheduled for?
We actually met this morning, and the next meeting, and then the next meeting is scheduled in February.
Okay, I guess maybe, sometime in the near future, I'd like to get a download of kind of what was discussed and outcomes and kind of consensus around next steps. Because I think the terminology equity has kind of come up a lot over the last 6 to 7 years, and I still feel like that was one of the things that I looked at in this is equity's only mentioned 2 or 3 times. And I just want to make sure that we have a roadmap with some clarity as to how we're going to kind of pursue that gap that we kind of all agreed up here that we do have in the district.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can look to incorporate that time-wise, either maybe into the next. We can look for ways to bring that forward to the board and in some more formal ways, for sure.
Other questions, comments? I think for me, I just want to kind of touch on one piece, and I think one of the biggest concerns, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but certainly for me, is I think that when we move those sixth graders over, is going to be one of our biggest challenges that we faced, and I think when we put the strategic plan together, we spent a lot of time talking about it. I like where we're at, but I also was just curious if we talked about having a good ramp-up time, really to make sure those teachers that we're going to be transitioning over to a middle school model, maybe being focused on a singular subject as opposed to teaching sixth grade or whatever grade they're coming from. And maybe we're not ready at this point, but are we prepared to talk about what next year would look like in an effort to make that transition relatively smooth? I know we're not there yet. We haven't figured out exactly which staff is transitioning to which position, but how are we talking to them right now? How are we finding engaging where people are going to be comfortable? And do we have a little bit of an arc or a timeline of exactly what that's going to look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so as we look to finalize that schedule, that really will have all of our staffing implications in there as we build out what our population will be and then how many teachers we need to teach each grade level at each subject area. And from there, we'll have conversations with our staff members to see who is going to be making that transition. I know Mr. Sissel has already started some of those conversations, and then ensuring that we're providing that professional learning so that the teachers aren't just assumed to drop into that classroom and teach. We want to make sure that we're giving them all the tools they need in order to be successful as content specialists when you move over, because you're working at potentially a singular content area, maybe two, but just wanting to make sure that everyone feels confident in the subject that they're teaching as they make that transition over to the middle school for whoever that may be. And so our hope is that we can finalize some of those plans towards the end of the school year, probably in spring, and then really have a solid year of professional learning available to those staff members.
That's fantastic. I'd like to hear, maybe as we get closer to the end of the year, any anxiety that we're hearing from the staff, whether it's because they're not 100% sure where they're going to go or because we're making the change. And then what steps we're taking to maybe start to get them acclimated to even to the buildings that they're going to end up in, just so that when we hit the ground running, because already when you bring in 2 grades at one time, 2/3 of that building now are going to be brand new to that building, and I think that's going to, we all know what those 7th graders are like when they first come in. You know, it's a little bit anxious for them, so we want to make sure that the environment that they're walking to already doesn't have an anxiety level that's already elevated before they even walk in the door. So I really look forward to hearing more about that as we go forward over the next
And a lot of that will be part of our transition planning. We're thinking about ways that we can get students into the building, staff into the building, and then vice versa, actually bringing middle schoolers and staff over to each of our elementary schools during that transition time, so that everyone is feeling confident in that move, because it's a big leap for the district, but it's exciting work.
Yeah, I think the more that we understand the full footprint before the end of this school year, I think the more comfortable I'm personally going to feel.
We have the main board spotlight is focused on the middle school transition. So we are planning to give a full presentation in May on all of those plans and what that will look like for the following year. So that's the timing for that.
Perfect, I appreciate that. I knew it wasn't time yet. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to be asking in April or something like that. And I was ready for it. Appreciate it.
And again, just to summarize, the plan is to really have that detailed outline for what next year is going, or what the fall of 26 will look like by the end of this year, so that all of next year can be used for everything that Liz shared, developing our teachers, providing the training, having, all those individual conversations, but really then working with 2 grade levels of students to make sure that they're fully prepared as well.
I'm kind of piggybacking off of what Aaron just asked in regards to the middle school model and changes. I remember this was kind of a while back when we were discussing more of, do we make the transition from our current model to 6-8 model, and just talking about the different aspects going into that and what middle school could look like if we did make that change. I remember some conversation around the potential for things in the middle school, like teaming and different ways to organize and structure the middle school to perhaps be most effective, especially when we're talking about transitioning a large group of students all at once, and that kind of taking the middle school and almost making it smaller by creating teams and things like that as an option in the conversations we had. I think when we look at things like intervention and addressing behavior issues in schools and things like we know are amping up and things like that, that's something that can be an effective tool. So I just didn't know if there was any conversation around that going on still, or if there's any focus being discussed in that regard, or where we're kind of.
Sure, absolutely. So we're kind of still in that exploratory phase of like what the full model will look like. Really, I think our schedule will kind of guide towards where are those natural places to have teacher conversations and student conversations, and ensuring that students have that space still to receive their SEL curriculum, ensuring that that advisory time is meaningful and beneficial to their development. How are we accessing and making sure that we're continuing to structure executive functioning skills for students, and all of those things that are really important for our adolescent learners. And so all of those pieces, while the pure structure isn't quite solidified yet, all of those things are still on the table.
I guess since we're talking about goal number 4, just related to space utilization that kind of gets freed up at the elementary schools. Have those recommendations kind of been discussed initially? I know that the goal is to confirm those recommendations, but do we have an initial list of recommendations at this point?
So really, we're calling them priorities. We want to make sure that we're giving building principals space to make decisions that make the most sense for their building in terms of their staffing and student needs. And so we're going to look to prioritize different spaces for a variety of purposes. In some cases, it'll be ensuring that art and music have a classroom right now. In some schools, those are on a cart or on the stage. And so wanting to make sure that there's space for that within our schools, looking at some of our related services and ensuring that there's adequate space for all of our intervention, our speech and language, social work, EL, and resource processes and staffing. So we really are going to be looking at it more as a prioritization so that a building principal can really make a determination of what makes the most sense for their building based on a variety of parameters that we're going to put together. Absolutely. Additional questions? Okay. So we are going to go into the 2023-2024 year-end data. As I shared a week and a half ago when I was up here talking about our fall data snapshot, we kind of do this in a little bit of a different way because we are now talking about end-of-the-year data. And really that truly is because the summative data is embargoed until the middle of this week, but I am going to share our ECHO reports with you, and then we're going to talk about school improvement, the Illinois School Report Card timeline, and what that will look like at the end of this week. And so this evening, I will share spring growth reports from IAR. That's newly shared information this evening, although the final state IAR data is still preliminary. We will look at spring growth reports briefly. That was information that was shared in June with the board. Then we will look at spring growth reports, and then our IAR proficiency projection results, and our IAR proficiency projections for this school year. And so just a reminder of our ECHO thresholds as we look for expected, higher than expected growth, and then sometimes when we see our lower than expected growth or unsatisfactory growth, how are we going to address those needs? And so as we look at our IAR growth reports, we can see that our ELA IAR ECHO report shows us at higher than expected growth with higher than expected growth and expected growth across all schools. Additionally, we saw the same in math with expected growth and then higher than expected growth and expected growth across all of our schools. Again, this is our IAR data. IAR is one data point that gets put into a student's propensity score, and then it sets their projection for the upcoming school year. As I shared on the last slide, those were our school data points, and I want to take note of our grade level data points. So here we see our ELA data disaggregated by grade level, And we continue, of course, to see that higher than expected growth. That's the same information as the other slide, just in a different set of data points. But you'll see that our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade all had higher than expected growth on their IAR. We really attribute that to the ELA pilot and the work that was done in ensuring that everyone was on that same page, working in the same direction towards our standards, and we can see the results right here, which is really exciting for us. We're going to continue to monitor that as we implement Common Lit and Benchmark and UFly across the district with Fidelity. And then when we look at our math scores as well, we can see that there continue to be expected and higher than expected growth across grade levels on IAR for math. Additionally, we look at our student subgroups, and so we had a large number of higher than expected growth ratings across our subgroups in ELA. Again, a testament to that work of our ELA committee and really placing a focus on what that ELA instruction will look like across the district. Additionally, we saw expected and higher than expected growth in math as well. Our students, our multilingual students being the group that had higher than expected growth in math. So again, going back to our spring math data, this is the data that I shared last spring. And so while we understand that IAR is one data point, we also recognize that math is one data point. And so we want to see what are some of the things that we are seeing across schools and or grade levels that have us pause and say, what are some things that we can do to ensure that we are better supporting our students and staff and ensuring that they have the tools they need to be successful. And again, that goes across grade levels. So data shared with you last spring for spring math. And so we see that discrepancy that does make us pause and say, okay, well, what are some of the reasons why math data may be showing us this trend of lower than expected growth or unsatisfactory growth in some grade levels? And how do we ensure that we make that transition to supporting our teachers and our students in that way? One of those ways, as I shared at our October board meeting, is starting the curricular review process for our 6-8 math curriculum. So that process started 2 weeks ago. We held our first meeting. We have another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be exploring what are our current practices in our mathematics instruction, and how are we ensuring that they are meeting our standards and mathematical practices, and how are we best supporting our students in mathematics instruction. Now, because of the way that ECRA runs their reports, ELA is only indicative of IAR scores and reading is indicative of math scores. So the only combined data is in mathematics. And so this is where our overall growth summary showed for mathematics, both at a school lens and at a grade level lens. So that combines all of our math data points last year as well as our IAR data points. And so you can see that the places that we know that we need to continue to work and strive for improvements are highlighted on these two slides. So as we take a look at our IAR proficiency projections through ECRA, again, these will be slightly different than our state data, because this data only takes students who have 3 existing data points in our ECRA platform from the year previous, where the state data will take all of our students who took the IAR. And so when we take a look, all of our grade levels met or exceeded their projected benchmark, with all of our students in ELA hitting the 63% meeting or exceeding. And then in math, all of our grade levels meeting or exceeding their percentage benchmark, with 57% meeting or exceeding across grade levels. And so then we take that information and we look at what are next year's projections based on that ECRA model, and then we will review that data next October at the curriculum workshop. I'm already forecasting a year ahead. So then those really are connected to our KPIs, our key performance indicators. What are our academic proficiency key performance indicators? We're looking at the percentage of students that have demonstrated grade level proficiency based on state percentiles. And so this is information that we received from ECRA after the release of the Illinois School Report Card. ECRA puts all of the school data, ours and all of the other districts across the state, into a database and are able to place us into a percentile rank. And so what we look for is for our district to be in the 75th percentile for reading in ELA, and for the 85th percentile for math. And so when we receive that information after the school report card is released, I will be sure to share that with you at the November board meeting. The one KPI that we can take a look at is our academic growth. And for that, we take a look at our percentage of students demonstrating expected or higher than expected growth with a benchmark of 85. And so while we were just short of that with 84% in all subject areas, we did have 90% of our students meeting that expected growth target in ELA, and then we did see 81% of our students meeting that expected growth target in math. And so we know that that's an area that we want to continue working on, and I've shared several ways that we are going to start that work this school year. And so when we look at our measures for next year, we hope to see that boost up in the math area specifically, and then that will increase in our overall for all subject areas. So then we have our school response to data. Again, I started sharing this information with you last board meeting, which was a week and a half ago. So what we do is we review all of our spring data, our fall data, and make those connections. And then we collect the information to review any potential summer slide, determine adjustments to intervention groups, collect benchmark data for new students to DG58, and set that instructional path forward. We want to ensure that we're having intentional student grouping, consistent review of curricular pacing, and so we put check-in points with our principals to ensure that everyone is staying consistent and on the same page with their instructional pacing. We also have incorporation of specific interventions for students. Dr. Priester is actually going to share an update from our MTSS subcommittee later on in the meeting and work that we're doing with our interventions and how we're providing those support to students. And then we'll have additional support from our curriculum department. So our school improvement planning, we use our spring data and the building IOTs meet several times to apply the cycles of inquiry process to that data. So they establish goals related to the data that they receive back and ensuring that they're meeting their students' needs and providing the best path to success. So each building established one goal this year based on the analysis for implementation this school year. Many of them have a math goal established as we recognize that that's an area that we want our schools to work on in the upcoming school year. And then we do have one school who is having a continuation and an increase in their ELA implementation, and after discussion made the decision that that was the right move for that particular school. Additionally, we added an ELA curricular implementation goal as well as a PBSS goal. That PBSS goal is incorporating zones of regulation into our current SEL processes across the buildings. And so we're really looking forward to the implementations of zones and ensuring that our SEL curriculum across the board is really consistent, and we're seeing similar practices and procedures happening across all of our schools. And so the school improvement plans were provided to the board in your update last weekend. So please feel free to review those. After approval of the school improvement plans, those will go up on the website for public use. I'm sorry, I went into some of this already. So the building school improvement plan will be shared with building staff. That has already happened, and we've already started professional learning across all of our schools in correlation to the implementation of their school improvement plan. And those will be shared with PTAs as well as school report card information. The plan will be posted to the website, and then our principals who are scheduled for spotlights on our school, similar to what Mr. Leekert did a week and a half ago at our last meeting. They'll highlight their school improvement planning and processes at our monthly Board of Education meeting. Then review will be ongoing throughout the school year. If any adjustments need to be made, those can happen. I have regular meetings with the principals to review their SIP goals, and then they will have an analysis of those SIP goals in June of 2020. I should say 5. June of 25. And the culminating event will be on November 11th at our November Board of Education meeting, where we'll review our Illinois school report cards. Those are released by the state every October. The release is on Wednesday, October 30th this year, to show how the state, district, and each school are doing on a range of educational goals. So there are versions online. We'll have them linked to our website as well. There's a PDF with all the data. Those are very lengthy. There is also an Illinois interactive report card where you can click around and see a variety of data points in comparison to previous school years. And then we have our report card at a glance, which is a nice PDF that shares that information. Additionally, the data will have a school summative designation. And while those right now continue to be embargoed until Wednesday, what that is it stems from our Every Student Succeeds Act, after ESSA, which is federal legislation for accountability in school improvement processes. So this is something that began several years ago. At our November 11th board meeting, we will review school summative designations, how those summative designations are calculated, because it is not just how a school does on IAR. There are several different factors, including chronic absenteeism. We look at IAR growth, we look at English language progress to proficiency. So there are many places that the state extrapolates data from information that we give them, and then we are given our summative designation based on that. It really is intended to be educational and equitable, not as punitive. Our schools that are identified as targeted or comprehensive really receive a plethora of supports in order to provide any supports and things that a school needs to be to increase their success levels and really set a path forward. So when we release those summative designations, we will be sure to share that with the board right away. And that is our end of the year data and school improvement process. Questions? That was a lot of information.
Yeah, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I guess we're lucky to have you up here quite a bit and kind of dive into numbers. And I guess I was just trying to think, you've been with the district now a year and a half, give or take?
Just about, yeah.
So I guess you kind of step away from the numbers. What do you think are some of the key takeaways of what we've learned as a collective district related to assessments and data and all that good stuff? Like, what were some of the key takeaways as you step away from the numbers?
Absolutely. The first thing that I really can say is that the staff and the administration is just so eager to find those areas of success and replicate them, and then to find those areas where maybe some improvement is needed, and really diving in and saying, what are the things that we need to do in order to get us to the place that we want to be? And so that is evident with the work that happened with the ELA committee and how they charged a path forward for implementation of our new ELA resources, which is really exciting, and the collective efforts of our curriculum team and our instructional coaches and providing that professional learning to our teachers as we implement that. And then as we look forward towards what do some of these other curricular resources and reviews look like, and specifically our 6 ensuring that we're putting that same process in place that we did for ELA and seeing success with into our 6-8 math process, and ensuring that we are following that same scope and sequence and that structure so that we can see potential for implemented success. What we want to also ensure is that we recognize that classroom assessment data is also just as important as these summative assessments that we take. And so while we definitely use our IAR and our MAP data to kind of guide some of our work that we're doing, we also want to recognize that our classroom data and the decisions our teachers are making every single day really strive at student success. We want to ensure that that data that we're collecting is actionable and that we're making and setting paths forward for instructional practices that are benefiting our students. And so really proud of the work that is happening. And then all of our subgroups as well, as you can see from our IAR data, which is standards-based aligned, really ensuring that our subgroups are feeling that support as well. It's not just our tier 1, how are we supporting with enrichment, how are we supporting with gifted and accelerated programming, how are we supporting with intervention, and how are our special programs supporting and our resource. So it's really just a collective effort of ensuring that our data is moving in the right direction. Yes.
Other questions or comments? The only thing I want to bring up is I think the trajectory that we've been seeing with the IAR is our numbers are moving in the right direction in both ELA and math. But we're seeing now a further disconnect with math on MAP. And that flipped. I mean, at one point, our math on IAR was off and our math numbers were much better. As we see that trajectory changing, but we seem to be still staying in the red a little bit in a couple of grades in math. As we dive into that, are we seeing particular areas that we're missing in? Does it seem to be more universal, or maybe the order that we're doing things is different, that more aligned with IAR or math? Are we seeing a trend there in those areas that we think we need to deep dive in on, or does it seem to be more broad in general where we're seeing that gap?
Yeah, well, and I will say that what we're seeing is that many of those data points do live in that upper elementary and middle school world right now. And so really the curriculum review process with our 6-8 math committee is hopefully going to answer a lot of those questions. Like, why are we seeing this disconnect between our math data and some of our IAR data? And how are we ensuring that we're continuing to meet student needs? Also, is our acceleration process doing what it's intended to do, which is accelerating students to a level that is of the durability? Are we ensuring that we are monitoring what that progress looks like? And then when we look at growth, how are we ensuring that our high achieving students are continuing to grow? And how are we pushing up some of our students who maybe have lower achievement but still are kind of stagnant in their growth? How are we pushing them forward as well and filling in any of those gaps and prerequisite skills that maybe they're missing? So building that conceptual knowledge for mathematics to really deepen their understanding of numbers and how numbers work and all of that really is going to give them that solid foundation, and hopefully we start to see that trajectory go up in our 5, 6, 7, 8 grade levels.
I think as we get closer to the end of the year and we look to spring data and we look at that trajectory, I would like to maybe hear if we're still seeing that same trend, if there's gaps we think we need to fill, if that's a curriculum component, or is everybody moving at a similar pace across our district? We knew at one point we weren't seeing that, so we worked hard to kind of get everybody trying to be in a similar pace and finishing at the same place at the end of every year. So it'd be nice to see that maybe around spring data. And then the last question I have too is in the last meeting you referenced that now we sort of normalized with math that the kids take the test based on their grade because math is adjusted. 2 questions around that. One, does that change the way we should compare the data, to last year? And then 2, now that we went from having like single acceleration to double and sometimes triple, so we have some kids that may be all the way up into high school math. Do we have a similar concern all the way on that end to what we had in 5th grade before with the way the test was aligned? Are they still taking a regular standard middle school test even if they're...
They are, yeah. So they're still taking the standard assessment. So everyone's MAP assessment is aligned to their grade level. And as MAP tells us that they've changed their question selection algorithm to ensure that students don't really tap out at some of those standards within the assessment. We always continue to look at our practices and say, like, is the way that we're presenting these assessments and the data that we're collecting from them really informing our practice and ensuring that we're making the right instructional decisions for students. We don't want tests to be just an event that happened in our schools 3 times a year or 4 times a year. We want to ensure that that data is meaningful for us. And so as we're building out the information that's coming from both of those systems, how do we ensure that we're creating true action steps to make progress? And so while I don't quite know like the specific answer to your question in terms of is that the right move, that is the guidance that we're getting from MAP at this time, and we're going to continue to follow their guidance on what assessment to give to the students, but really continuing to analyze what those assessments are telling us.
And in comparing to last, so you feel pretty comfortable with this, and we're looking at these numbers and we're comparing that to last year's numbers, that it's a pretty fair look for us to look back at the last couple of years, that it didn't change that sort of trajectory or our numbers that we're looking at.
Correct, yeah, because the only students that are now included in those reports is that subgroup of fifth graders that were accelerated into sixth and seventh grade math. Everyone else is on our same continuum.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other questions, comments?
Just to add a little bit more to the NWA piece there, those fifth graders who were accelerated, who weren't included in the equity report, those students all still had MAP scores with their RITs, and so as they take that assessment, 3 times a year, it's going to start them off right where they ended the previous assessment, and so all the norms and everything will still remain consistent for the NWA MAP test as Liz shared. So we're fairly confident that when we do include them in the equity report now, because they're all taking the same test, that you can have a good comparison of previous years in that data.
And the only reason why I bring it up is if I remember correctly, last year's numbers, fifth grade was a dip year.
Right.
And then we saw it pick back up in sixth grade. And so I just wanted to, as anytime something changes in the way we do an assessment, I just want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. When we went kind of to the ECRA model, from our previous model, for the first couple of years, we were still Mr. Sissel, right? We went ahead and we're like, can you show us both? Because we wanted to make sure we were doing a fair comparison, and I just want to make sure we're still doing it.
Yeah, the only difference that you'll see in the fifth grade data from last year is that N number, the number of students who are showing up in the average report. It's now encompassing all fifth graders. Before, it was only showing you your grade level students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it is truly my pleasure to present tonight on behalf of Special Programs. I think if you look up here, you'll see a familiar slide. Sitting that forward. Here we go. I am truly proud to work in a district that promotes its mission for all students, and all means all, and Special Programs really do play a special role in making that opportunity available to students with IEPs or students who receive special education services. As one of the largest elementary districts in DuPage, we have the unique opportunity to offer in-district specialized programs. Not every district can say that. We have programs that have been in place for over 20 years, and we have a program that's starting its second year right now. But each of those programs really help us meet a very important standard in special education called least restrictive, or a district's ability to educate students as much as possible with other students who don't have disabilities. A huge thank you goes out to both our certified and non-certified staff, some of whom are with us today, and you'll be hearing from, and our program administrators, because without their expertise and daily support, our programs couldn't do what they do for students. So if I can state the obvious, special programs are truly specialized. What we might do for maybe 1 or 2 children in an entire building, we do for an entire program at some of our buildings, and we do all of that and more. There'll be a real treat later on today. You're going to have a chance to really hear from the people that do it every day about what it looks like and what are the things that make their program unique from other programs within the district. But I always like to envision, when I think about our specialized programs, I always envision kind of a Venn diagram, because there are some pieces that all of them do very well, and then there are other pieces that really make each special program unique from one another. This idea of that least restrictive environment really speaks to the flexibility that having an in-district program has. So for students at some points in their school career, they may need an environment that looks more what we would call self-contained, where they need that structure and support and that high ratio of adults to students really from start to finish during the day. And in our system, that can be a temporary thing. As soon as they're ready to really be comfortable and experienced in those larger group environments, because our specialized programs are housed in our schools, they're able to get out one step at a time, 3 steps at a time, really whatever is right for that child. You'll see a lot of commonalities around things like behavioral intervention planning, and there's lots of things I think you think about when you think about our teams doing this important work, but really it's trying to help a child overcome any behavior that's getting in the way of them being successful at school, and there's a whole gamut of what that can look like. Starting with some, anxious manifestations that have more to do with avoidance and eloping, all the way to maybe more traditional things you think about when you think about behavioral management. We integrate assistive technologies. It's a great partnership with our technology department, really trying to put innovation in the hands of our students to assist them with communication, to assist them with being able to access their learning. You're going to hear and see some of those pieces today. And then there's these other really critical pieces, our invaluable instructional assistants that really help to bring our program, alive for our students and help them take the skills they're learning in that supportive environment and bring it out into a general education classroom. Because we offer it here in district, we're really able to offer equitable access. So not every building has every program. That's, we do more of this clustering of students so that we can be efficient with our resources. But what we do have are students' ability to stay within their same home district to get the services that they need. And we have families that are phenomenal in helping families that are new to the process kind of bridge and make that leap if they have to leave their home school to access a special program. And we're very grateful to our families that serve in that mental capacity or mentoring capacity. And then finally, there's that fiscal responsibility piece. Because we operate our own programs, we're really able to direct our funds to the place where we know our students need it most. We don't necessarily get that with other programming outside of the district, although other programming outside of the district serves a critical need for us as well. All right, this hopefully is a familiar graphic. So this is just an easy structure that kind of shows our multi-tiered system of support. You can see that little arrow there, that specialized programs really sits at the very top of specialization. But you'll also find that what we're doing in special programs is the same kind of work that we're doing everywhere within the district. So we're flexible. We are using data to make our decisions. We're using evidence-based strategies and tools and curriculum. And it's that flexibility that really helps our students to be successful. So something, about special education is that differentiation, and we really work hard across the board for students to be successful. So I think most people, if you've been in the district for any number of years, these acronyms probably mean something to you. You've probably heard about the BEST program, the DLP program, the RISE program, which is one of our newer programs. All of these being offered at kindergarten through 8th grade. You're going to hear further details about each of them, but I wanted to just give a quick overview from a historical lens of how long these programs have been around and some of the things that they've mitigated as we've gone through the years. So I'll start with our BEST program that really focuses in on supporting students with emotionality, and that program is run by Lauren Hartelius currently. Once upon a time, that program was referred to as AEP, or Alternative Education Program, that goes all the way back to the 1980s. We really kind of rebranded in the 90s, and while we were running both an intermediate and a middle school program, we went to full inclusion at the intermediate level. And it didn't last. We really found that we wanted the flexibility of offering different kinds of environments for students to learn. And so back in 2006, we reopened our intermediate program at Kingsley. And then by 2015, we opened our first kindergarten classroom. We have had a kindergartner enrolled in the program every single year since we opened the kindergarten program. It's definitely been a need that we've seen. And we've seen really steady enrollment in that program. It really has been between 25 and 35 kids across the last 10 years pretty consistently. Another one of our programs that's been around a long time is our developmental learning program. Tiffany Williams is our coordinator for that program. It's been operational since the 1990s, and we've offered it preschool through 8th grade. Back at the beginning, we were looking at more of 1 or 2 classrooms at the elementary level and 1 or 2 classrooms at the middle school. And we have grown to up to 4 classrooms at times at the elementary level. Preschool has had 1 or 2 classrooms, each with 1 or 2 sections every year in the last couple of years. And middle school fluctuates between 1 and 2. And then finally, our newest K-8 program is our RISE program that serves students who have characteristics that might be associated with autism, although one of the things about our specialized programs is they're not label driven. You do find that when you go to a placement outside of the district that you can only apply to schools that have your category of disability. The nice thing about a district program is you get to decide what a student needs, and so we build our programs around the needs of the students that we currently have, and that flexibility is a benefit to everybody. Our autism program started in our preschool back in 2003, and it was in preschool for a really long time. It wasn't until 2015 that we decided that we thought that we could do it well at the elementary level. We opened a pre-K classroom, and what started as 2 kids in 2015 has now grown to 7 classrooms. And then we are now in our 2nd year of middle school implementation. So we've moved up to 50 kids within the program. It's by far our fastest growing program. So, just a couple of graphs to give you a sense of what it's looked like over the last 7 or 8 years. And actually, we'll give a second. Our staff are going to go and just get ready for the next part of our presentation. So if you look at this slide by itself, what you see is an increase in the needs of students. You see more students becoming eligible and needing that supportive specialized environments. But what I think is just an interesting kind of juxtaposition is looking at the number of students who were served outside of the district, where we've seen a reduction in that number. And again, both of our what we term outplacements, that would be our SACSID cooperative, who we talk about at every meeting. Dr. Russell sits on that board. Or therapeutic day schools. You might have heard of schools like Little Friends, Giant Steps, Guiding Light, Connect Academy. We are very fortunate in DuPage County to have a lot of options for therapeutic day schools. They serve a need. There are students whose needs sometimes exceed what we can plan for and support here within the district. And so it is good to have these strong partners outside of the district, but it's also really good to be able to expand our services so that students don't necessarily have to leave the district in order to be successful. So this just breaks it down by therapeutic versus SACSID and kind of what those numbers have looked like over the past 8 years. And then, just a nice comparison, and you can see as we've grown our internal options, we've been able to meet those needs for more students within the district. And at the same time, we continue to have a strong showing in outplacement options for students, but not necessarily as much as we used to before. So that's a real point of pride for specialized programs, because that's what we're going for. We're going for meeting the need where we can. And then to focus on our foundational specialized program, so the one where lots of our students start, which is our Grove Children's Preschool. We're super proud of our preschool program. We are up here a lot, just celebrating their gold designation by the state. That's the highest designation that a preschool can receive from the State Board of Education. And that work, where we first got that designation, was when Dr. Jacqueline Kadar was in charge of the program. Susan Dillon's our current program coordinator, and the bar continues to rise to be able to get that gold designation, and we continue to need it year after year. So that is a real point of pride for us. Just like everywhere else within the district of preschool, we look for a continuum of services. So we have 5 blended, what we call blended classrooms. We're actually going to be walking down to go through some presentations in what are our blended classrooms. We term them blended because we bring in community students. Anyone can come in that lives within the Downers Grove Grade School boundaries and tuition into our preschool program. We have a state-approved curriculum. We have an exceptional amount of access to a number of related services and other specialized credentials. Our teachers have triple certification. So we get a third of our classrooms are tuition-based, a third come in through a screening process where they're deemed at risk by a rubric that we've created that just identifies a student who would be at risk for academic failure if we weren't for preschool. And then we have students who are already identified as having special needs. And then if those environments are too busy or not accessible because of the student's specific need, we also have special education programs. We have a preschool version of the RISE program and a preschool version of the DOP program. So we oftentimes will find students maybe start there and then move out into blended and go to a typical kindergarten, and some students obviously maintain their enrollment in a specialized program. So I might be a little biased, but I will say that our preschool is probably the best gig in town. So without further ado, this is perhaps the most exciting part of specialized programs, which is an opportunity really to hear from staff about what it is that they do. And I will warn you, there is some experiential things planned for you, but no worries, no push-ups this time around. You were here for the key presentation. So, I mean, just again, a shout out to our staff, both certified and non-certified, that make specialized programs truly special. I think you'll enjoy hearing from them. So, the setup is going to be that we will have in the preschool wing on the right side, both our RISE program and our DLP program will be presenting. Total, both presentations will be 15 minutes. So we'll have maybe 7 or 8 of us heading to room 224. And then the other half of us will be across the hall on the left side, on the right side, for Best in Grove Children's Preschool. And they will be presenting for 15 minutes, and then we will swap. So you'll have 4 presentations in 2 rooms, each 15 minutes. And hopefully you'll have a blast. So any questions before we make our way down to the preschool side, which is literally the complete opposite end of the building? Okay, that's that.
That was a wonderful tour around, and it was great to see the staff and the presentations today. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we want to thank our special programs coordinators and Jessica for just the wonderful highlight on our special programs in the district. We're so lucky to have just such wonderful staff supporting our students. We're going to wrap up the meeting with just a couple of curricular committee updates. We have Dr. Priester and Ms. Cristobal here to share updates with you. Dr. Gajewski could not be here tonight. She had class, so I will be giving an update on the gifted committee. So we are going to start with an update from the ELA committee.
Well, it is a big year for ELA. We are implementing 3 new curriculums this year. We have our new phonics program, UFly Foundations for K-2, Benchmark Advance for K-5, our reading curriculum, and then our ELA curriculum, Common Lit 360 for our 6th through 8th graders. We've been very busy providing a lot of professional learning to our staff, utilizing our early release on Mondays. About once a month, we're getting every grade level together to preview that next unit of instruction and also to dive into those instructional strategies in our programs that are aligned with the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan that came out last January. Specific to our ELA committee, we are working through those last couple steps of the ELA review process. A couple highlights. One, we're going to be gathering feedback from our staff. What is going well in our first year of implementation? What challenges are there? And that will drive our committee work. We'll also be building out our parent education on our district website, on our grade level overview pages. Right now, ELA is under construction, and we'll get that content in there so parents can learn more about our resources. Another committee I want to highlight is our new math committee. You've heard about this already tonight, but our new math committee is focusing on grades 6 through 8. Specifically, we will be doing a curriculum review on big ideas. And so we'll be determining, is big ideas meeting our needs, both as teachers and for our students, developing into proficient mathematicians. Another new committee this school year is a subcommittee of MTSS. So this committee met once last year and really picking up on our work this school year. This committee is focusing in on intervention. So we're looking at our diagnostic tools of how we're pinpointing skill deficits in the areas of math and reading, and then pairing the best intervention to solidify those skills for our students. We'll also be making sure we're in alignment with the Illinois Literacy Plan in the areas of intervention that they're spotlighting. And then we are also putting to work our professional learning that we've invested in the last few years in Letters for Literacy and AVMR for Math in this work in the area of intervention.
So, as you know, our gifted committee has worked to make updates to our current gifted programming. And so we are working through the first year of implementation of school-based gifted learning. Our gifted programming really is designed to foster that creativity, critical thinking, and love for learning. The program cultivates leaders, thinkers, and innovators of tomorrow. And so we have our program structures and goals. The gifted program is really part of our MTSS structure and framework, and so we're looking at that high end of support that students need. It works on enhancing our students' cognitive abilities through tailored learning experiences, and the curriculum is rich in challenges designed to ignite curiosity. And so really what we're doing in this first year of implementation is evaluating our program model. So we're going to be using both formal and informal assessments and observations to evaluate the strengths and areas of growth for our program. So we have our school-based model. Our 5th and 6th graders are still here at Henry Puffer 1 day a week, but our 4th graders are receiving instruction daily at their home school. We're going to be giving out our first formal feedback form to both our teachers and our students in November, and then we're going to be collecting parent feedback after the new year. So we're really looking forward to getting that feedback of our current programming models as we're building out what the 5th grade curricular resources will look like for that program for implementation next school year. Our parents receive updates on their child's studies for pre and post units, and then again, we're going to continue to gather that feedback. Our first set of feedback forms are going out in November. We're going to collect those multiple times throughout the year to really ensure that we are evaluating our program thoroughly. We're also doing a deep dive into the data of our gifted learners and seeing if that change and shift in program models is, if we're seeing or noticing any transition in our data from being school-based versus being in our one-day-a-week model. I really want to give a shout out to our teacher librarians. They've really embraced this work. They're asking great questions. They've also been utilizing their professional learning Mondays to meet as a team, go through new units of study, really work through how they're implementing with their groups at their school. And I'm just so proud of the work that they've done and really want to give them a shout out in the work that they've done with Eleni on building out those units. We're going to review implementation after each unit is done to make any adjustments that we see fit. What we tried to do was take what our one-day-a-week model looked like and create daily lessons based on that. And in some cases, it worked out seamlessly, and in other cases, it maybe wasn't as seamless as we had hoped. And so we're going to be building out what those updates are throughout the course of this school year. So the next thing that we really are going to place that focus on beyond developing our fifth grade curriculum is that eligibility process. You know, we looked at doing that in tandem and we realized that if we made 2 shifts at once, we really wouldn't know if a program was successful or maybe wasn't being implemented in the way we wanted based on 2 different sets of data that we were collecting. Was it because of criteria changes? Was it because of implementation of programming changes? And so we decided to hold off on changing the criteria until we made this implementation of school-based programming. And so we're really going to start evaluating what that criteria looks like. We're working through the district equity leadership team on that work as well to make sure that we're putting an equity lens on our identification process. We're continuing to evaluate our elementary program structure, and then we're going to be looking at what does gifted instruction look like at the middle school as we make that transition of our 6th graders over to the middle school. We'll continue to develop differentiation in the classroom, both at the gifted level, but also in our general education classrooms as well.
All right, I am the last one, so we made it through. Buenas noches, good evening. I'm very excited to provide an update on our two-way dual language program. This program started in 2022, and now here we are. So we're up to 2nd grade. We're so excited that we have this program which continues to empower students to become bilingual, biliterate, and have that bicultural piece as part of the academic experience. So our goals remain focused on aligning the curriculum using our biliteracy planner, which we have through Benchmark Adelante and Benchmark Advance, like monolingual classrooms do, and we also have the Spanish portion. We're excited to be able to also support our dual language classroom teachers on specific strategies that are needed to help bilingual learners, such as Dictado, which is a very popular strategy among dual language classrooms in Latin American countries, where students are listened and to a dictation, and they have to not only write it, but then they have to continue to add more. So those are like specific strategies that our teachers are learning. And then, of course, having a program, we want to make sure that we are addressing the needs that our bilingual students may need. So when we look at bilingual students, we're looking not at as one individual that is Spanish speaker or English speaker, but instead we're looking at them as one individual with 2 languages. And so it's kind of like a waterfall where both languages fall into a pool. And so with that in mind, our MTSS process may look a little different, but that is what we are continuing to build. Our Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee is very strong. It's playing a vital role in our program. Through this council, we are encouraging our parents to understand bilingual education, to understand things as Dictado, MTSS for bilingual students. What does it mean for my child to be bicultural? And so we are doing that through educational sessions. We're doing that through hosting cultural events and providing opportunities for families to be involved. And so in summary, we're committed to maintaining high standards of curricular alignment, effective strategies, and strong family engagement to keep our dual language program going. Again, we're so excited that we're up to 2nd grade, and just want to also give a huge shout out to Mr. Lin, the principal at El Sierra, and the teaching staff that make this program possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is an update on our committee work. Any questions?
Questions or comments from the board?
About the dual language program and opportunities for cultural events. Can you speak a little bit more to what does that mean for both students in the dual language program, but also maybe for the general education population?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of our program, one of our mission is to make our students have that competency of biculturalism. So our teachers, our dual language teachers, are very specific into adding cultural elements throughout the curriculum. So for example, right now in lots of parts of Latin America, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, is very popular. So our teachers are very strategic about adding that piece into the curriculum. But in terms of family engagement, we want to make sure that our parents are coming together. There's a place for them to express their culture, to be engaged with a new culture if they're English speakers. And so we try to put out an event once a year that we invite all our bilingual families, not only families from our dual language program, but from district-wide, any families that are that have another language at home. Last year we did a piñata night where we had about 200 participants that came to O'Neill and created piñatas. The year before that we had Bingo Loteria Mexican night, which is well attended. And so we provide those opportunities so that families can feel comfortable coming into the district and having that tie. In terms of other events that are done by other schools, almost every school does an international fest, international night, international fair that gets done. And a lot of our specials teachers, for example, are starting to add a little bit more of culture competencies as well, such as Dia de los Muertos. Our teachers are incorporating that for general education students. So, but the difference is that the dual program really wants to help families engage in the culture because we're teaching not only the language, but how that language connects to the culture. And so that event, this year we are going to announce what our event is, but that will be coming soon. Yes.
To be announced.
Any other questions
Any
or
other
comments from the board?
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank our coordinators again. They just do such a wonderful job putting together all of our programming, all of our committee work, from special programs to curriculum. We just couldn't do it without them. So again, special thanks to them. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to an opportunity for public comment. The board has allotted 30 minutes tonight for an opportunity to provide public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes, but I'm going to go check to see if we have any cards since I don't see any people left in the room. So no public comment tonight. A couple of announcements. It looks like the legislative committee meeting has been canceled for this Wednesday, but Monday, November the 11th at 7 p.m. will be our next regular board meeting, and that will be back at the Downers Grove Civic Center. The board will now meet in close to discuss. Is there a motion to move to close to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district? That's 5 ILCS 122C1.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Melissa, please call roll.
Member Weiner. Member Doshi.
Aye.
Member Hannis.
Aye.
Member Harris.
Aye.
Member Olchik. Member Hughes.
Aye. The motion carried. The board will now move into closed session. After a short recess, let's meet at 9.